Hello, welcome to the video. Today I'll be showing you how to change the strings on your guitar, and I'll be showing you how to clean the guitar properly while you have your strings off. And so to change our strings and clean our guitar properly, we'll be using the following items. We have some hand soap, we have an old toothbrush, we have a string winder, which is also our string pin puller. We have a pair of snippers for cutting the strings, a clean microfiber towel. I have some furniture polish. In this case it's actually stainless steel polish for cleaning your fridge, that'll be fine. I have some car polish, and of course I have our strings. So let's get started. Please notice that I have laid the guitar down on a soft cloth microfiber towel to avoid scratching on the desktop. This is known as a string winder, or at least that's what I call it. It acts as a crank to wind our strings quickly. Notice it has two slots, one for larger size machine heads and one for old-fashioned smaller size. It also acts as our pin puller. That's what this arch-shaped hole is, if you will. So we simply take our string winder and attach it onto the machine head as so, and we loosen the string. Now at the bridge end of the guitar, we'll be taking the pin puller and pulling the pins. These are the string pins. Now if you don't have a pin puller, go and get one. Don't be tempted to use pliers or screwdrivers or anything like that. In most cases these are plastic on a guitar. In my case these are made of brass, but most of them are white plastic and they snap very easily, especially on an older guitar where the plastic has turned brittle. Always use the correct tool and it will make the job very simple, and you shouldn't break your pins. Very easy. Pin comes out, string comes out. Do that 5 more times. Now if you didn't have a string puller and you used a pair of pliers anyway, even though I said not to, and you snapped your plastic pin, here is how you get it out. So let's say this knob part is no longer there because the pin is snapped, and the rest of the pin is embedded in the bridge holding the string in place. One method is to take a coin, go in through the sound hole, and push the coin up against the back of the pin. And that's come out. So this is the bridge, and this is the bridge saddle. Named the saddle because that's where the strings sit. Notice that there will probably be grooves worn into the saddle from your strings. This saddle goes a particular way. Don't get it mixed up as to which way it sits. Okay, you can always tell by the heavier notches or the thicker notches will be corresponding with the thicker strings, and the thinner notches will be corresponding with the thinner strings. Nevertheless, always make sure it goes back in the way it came out, and look out for possibly little pieces of paper or cardboard inside the slot where the saddle sits. This is a guitar technician's way of raising the saddle once it's been cut down too low. In this case I have some little slips of paper to raise it back up ever so slightly, and whoever has set up your guitar may have done the same thing. Look out for that. If they fall out, just slip them back in, but don't lose them, because that does determine the precise height of your bridge saddle, which is important for playability. So for cleaning the bridge saddle and the nut, I've placed some hand soap on a toothbrush as you would toothpaste for cleaning your teeth, splashed it with some water, and we're about to go scrubbing. This is the nut, commonly made from plastic. Mine is made from cattle bone, which means it gets filthier. It seems to get a lot dirtier than regular plastic. But nevertheless, just brush it as you would brushing your teeth. Thoroughly, get right in there. I'll also be doing the same along the fretboard or the fingerboard. This area gets covered with sweat, oils and dirt from your fingertips and really needs to be cleaned. Now notice that I have some soapy water on the headstock, on the paintwork, and that's fine, but I didn't scrub the paintwork with the toothbrush. That will scratch. Don't do that. In this case, my cattle bone nut is stubbornly holding in a lot of grime, so I'll be using car polish on a cloth. In fact, I'll be using car polish on a cloth all the way along this white plastic binding along the neck, and also for the bridge saddle. Wipe away the soapy water with your soft cloth, and you can see the filth and dirt that's come off in just that quick little wipe. So personally, I use car polish coming out of a old squeezy bottle just because it's easier for me to control the flow and distribution of how much I'm putting down. This can also be used on the paintwork to remove scratches and just give it a good clean. However, if you don't know much about car polishing or paint polishing in general, you might not want to do this. There is a precise and particular way you should polish paint without leaving lots of scratches and problems. So on the raw timber or on the plastic or cattle bone, there's no particular technique other than just scrub, scrub, scrub. Again, try and avoid the paintwork if you don't know what you're doing with polishing, because you can make it look worse than it did to start with. Scrub both ways, vertical, horizontal. I'm not pressing very hard. Basically I can't because I have crippled hands, but you shouldn't really need to press very hard anyway. Both directions. This will also help smooth the timber of your fretboard slightly, in the same way that it will make the paintwork on your car smoother. But it does that by wearing away the top layer of the wood as it does with your paint. And so that's why you want to be very careful if you do use it on your paint. You can leave scratches and swirls in your paint. You don't want that. When using car polish on the paintwork, follow the directions on the pack, but one little tip is do not make circular motions with the cloth. I'm going in straight lines here, very gentle, straight lines, no circular motions. Buff off the remainder with a clean dry part of the cloth, just to remove the rest of that car polish. Take your furniture polish and use it as you normally would on your furniture. Do the front, do the back, do the sides, do anywhere that's painted. Could also use glass cleaner, that will work fine. Car polish as you would use on a car, because it's really just clear coat. This guitar's covered in anyway. You might think, well, that guitar's not painted. Yes, it is. It's covered in clear varnish essentially. again, notice I'm going in straight lines, not in circular motions. Don't forget the back. You can clean the machine heads with the car polish or the furniture polish while it's there on the cloth. Don't spend too much time on it, because remember, we're going to put the strings back on, so they're going to end up with fingerprints on them, and we'll just give them a quick wipe over again when we're finished. And while we're at it, I forgot to mention, take a screwdriver, Phillips head, and tighten up your string pins. Make sure they're not loose. That's very good. If you have nuts on your string posts and your guitar is made anywhere other than the USA, take a 10mm spanner and check to see that they're tight. If your guitar is made in the USA, you'll need an imperial spanner. Wrench, I should say. You'll need an imperial wrench. Don't over tighten them, just make sure they're not loose. If this is loose, tighten the screw gently. Doesn't need to be very tight, just enough to stop this rattling. In this case, there's no movement, no rattling, so these don't need tightening. But if you do, adjust the screw. And on the back of the headstock, also check that these screws are tight. Regarding string choice, which brand should you buy? In my humble opinion, it really doesn't matter which brand, as long as the gauge is the same as the previous strings. Now, the gauge refers to the thickness of each string, and it should be written on the packet somewhere. It's important to use the correct thickness or gauge of strings, as your truss rod inside the neck will be set up for a particular gauge of string. As you tighten the strings put tension on the neck, which makes the neck bow. In the same way a bow and arrow, the tension of the string bows the bow, hence the name bow. So if you use the same strings that you used before, or at least the same gauge, the same thickness, they'll put the same tension on the neck, and you won't have any extra bow, which means your guitar will play much better. If the strings are individually wrapped and labelled, leave them in the packaging and take them out one by one as you need them, so that you don't get them mixed up. So now I'll be taking the string labelled first, and I'll be placing the ball end in the first hole. Notice that your string pin will have a slot in it. Have the slot facing the headstock of the guitar so that the string sits within the slot. And with my other hand, placing the pin so that it holds the ball in place. With my left hand, I'm pulling the string up, and with my right hand, I'm pushing the pin down as hard as I can. Now take the other end of the string and place it through the hole on the corresponding string post, in this case the first one, and slip it through. Now what I do is I slip my fingers under the string and I tilt my hand about that much. And this way I know how much slap I'm going to need to wrap around the post without having too much. This is just a rough estimate. About that much. And then I kink the string. Wind to tighten. and I leave tension on the string with my hand taking up the slack. Using your thumb, hold the string down so that it winds at the bottom of the post, not at the top. Let it work its way up by itself naturally. Make sure the string is sitting in the slot of the nut. Keep winding until the slack is gone. Ensure that the string is resting in the relevant notch in the string saddle. Check again to make sure that the string pin is tight. This is good. And now repeat this process with the other 5 strings. Push the pin in as tight as you can and pull the string upward with the other hand as tight as you can to ensure that the pin is in place. That's good. My thumb holds the string down in place. And then I make sure the string is in the appropriate slot on the nut. Now, I'm not looking for perfect pitch at the moment, just putting a little bit of tension on the strings. So now that I have some strings on the guitar, I'd like to show you this. Ensure that the string comes from the nut and from the inside of the machine head and around, not from the outside. If your string comes around the outside, you've done it backwards basically. Make sure you take it off and do it again so that the string comes from inside the post and not from around the outside of the post. If the string comes from around the outside of the post, it can actually damage the guitar. The string can wear and hit against the wood where it shouldn't. If it comes around this way, it won't have that issue. When you've reached this stage with all 6 strings, you're ready to snip off the excess. Make sure that you don't accidentally clip the wrong part of the string. This will cut the string, obviously, but we've all done it by accident. Going like this, and whoops, the clippers are actually under the string. Be very wary of that and make sure you are only clipping the excess. These ends will be very sharp. You can file them down if you wish, just avoid them, but be wary they are sharp and they will make you bleed. And the guitar is now ready for tuning. Notice how none of the strings are touching each other. None of them are crossing over. Again, if they're touching or crossing over, you've done it wrong and you've just wound it around the wrong way. Remove the string from the post and do it again.